Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the kickoff episode of Season 3 of My Thoughts. So, of course, this is the series where I give you, as the title says, my thoughts on Marvel projects, movies, series, and stuff like that. And if you did not catch some of my previous episodes where I've talked about the future of this series, Season 3 will sort of be just ongoing for the entirety of Phase 5. I'll start Season 4 when we get to Phase 6. But basically, what Season 3 is going to be is we're going to look at all of the projects, all of the episodes of every single series that is in Phase 5, and I will break them down, probably do some Easter eggs here and there as well of every single episode that we get moving forward, as well as every movie. So while we're kicking off with Quantumania and the first project of Phase 5, I will be retroactively going back and recording episodes for I Am Groot, Werewolf by Night, and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. And without further ado, let's jump right into it because we have a lot to talk about with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. So before we get into it, however, do want to say this is going to be a spoiler-filled episode. So if you've not seen the movie yet, I highly, highly, highly recommend you get off of the video now, save it for later, because this is going to be spoiler filled, and I do not want people to have this film spoiled because there is a lot of important stuff moving forward that is revealed in this film. So I'm going to give everybody a few more seconds who have not seen the film to get out. And now let's go ahead and get into it. So Quantumania had a very difficult task as it had to balance three different things. It had to be an Ant-Man movie, a movie that introduced the main villain of the MCU moving forward, and the concept of the quantum realm in a way in which we have not really experienced it before. So I know that Rotten Tomatoes and a lot of critics have sort of panned Ant-Man, but as we go through my analysis of the positives, the negatives, my favorite scene, my worst scene, and of course we will rate it, something different than my previous series. We'll be rating these on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. I want you to form your own opinions, of course, but I'm going to share my positives, negatives, all that kind of stuff, but don't listen to the critics. Go see the movie for yourself, and if you have, I'd love to hear what you thought about it, because I think that a lot of fans are going to have very different opinions on the film than what the critics had to say. So starting off with the positives, I think the first and probably easiest positive to talk about is Jonathan Majors as Kang. I think that probably one of the key takeaways that people will have from this film is that Jonathan Majors was the correct choice for Kang. And considering the first post-credit scene, we will be seeing a lot more of Jonathan Majors with many different characters and many different personalities throughout the remainder of Phase 5 and Phase 6. And I don't think there could be a more perfect man for the role. He absolutely killed it. He felt menacing. And in all honesty, I know that a lot of people were sort of expecting him to feel like Thanos, but I know at least for me, he felt a lot more like Darth Vader than he did Thanos. And I'll get a little bit more into the feel of the movie in a bit here, but it was a very interesting feeling that I haven't really had with any other Marvel villain. He just sort of felt menacing, and you really didn't know what he was capable of. And I think, while I will admit there was some parts of the movie where I wish we could have explored him a little bit more, especially his fighting capabilities, I'm kind of intrigued by the fact that we didn't get too much. We got enough, but not enough to fully figure out Kang. And I think that's kind of awesome. I'm kind of excited to see what they do moving forward, again, because you'll get many different versions of this character. And I'm very excited to see Jonathan Majors continue to reprise his role as Kang moving forward. So my second positive of the film is that the Ant-Man cast as a whole, I think, all performed well. Now, 4 of the 5 performed, I'd say, exceptionally well. One of them got overshadowed, but we'll get into that. And I think the first thing that needs to be said is that this movie was fundamentally focused on Michelle Pfeiffer's Wasp, the original Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. And the scenes that we got that focused on her were incredible. I think that she brought a lot more depth to the character. Now, I guess you could say sort of not wanting to tell her family about what happened in the quantum realm got a little bit repetitive here and there, but it wasn't overdone, in my opinion. I think that, it made sense why she wouldn't want to tell them what happened. And there was enough exposition about what has happened in the past that it wasn't too much. It was just right. And I think the scenes between her and Kang were absolutely amazing. And again, she just gave a great performance. I've not been a huge fan of Michael Douglas and his sort of take on Hank Pym, but I thought this was probably his best showing as the character. And again, I just really appreciated sort of the depth that got added to his character in this film. Paul Rudd as Ant-Man is Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I mean, I feel like any movie Paul Rudd is in, he immediately makes it better. I was very interested that it felt like he was not on screen as much as he had been in previous Ant-Man films, but it really doesn't matter because again, the every time he was on screen, he made the most of it. And I also want to say that Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang absolutely killed it. I'm so excited to see what they do in the future with her, especially with the Young Avengers. Again, she sort of suffers from the same Kang effect, though, where we got just enough, but we didn't get too much. So there's still a lot about her that we need to find out about, and I'm really excited to see where they take her character. Now, Hope Van Dyne, Evangeline Lilly's Wasp, was really the character that got sidelined and really only came to save Ant-Man twice during the film. I don't know how that's going to play out moving forward. I think that just Marvel does not really have a plan for the Wasp character. Even in Ant-Man and the Wasp, I thought she was kind of sidelined, even though that movie was, I think, fundamentally supposed to be about her introduction. But I will be interested to see what goes on with her character moving forward. Because, again, I thought she was sort of overshadowed by the other 4 members of the Ant-Man team. But, again, overall, every single actor and actress gave a fantastic performance in their roles. Lastly, I think the feel of the movie was something that was very different, but in a good way. And I've heard a lot of people compare the feel of this movie to a Star Wars film. Hence why I made the comparison of Jonathan Majors' Kang the Conqueror to Darth Vader. But I truly think that it's a good thing, not a bad thing. I think that Marvel, as much as I love them and as much as I'm a diehard fan, I think they suffer consistently so from having the same feel across their movies. Even projects that are supposed to be their own thing and very different, there's sort of a Marvel feel to them. And this really didn't feel that way. It sort of felt like its own thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing, and we'll get to some of the criticisms I have of it. But it was very interesting to see Ant-Man in a Star Wars-esque movie, and I thought it worked very well considering. I will also say, just as a side note, that unlike many of the Phase 4 projects, I'm thinking about you, Thor Love and Thunder, the humor hit very well in this film. It was not overdone. The serious moments were very serious, but when humor was brought into the picture, it was done tastefully, and it was not sort of played around with too much. And I appreciate that. So again, overall, the feel of the film was great. It was different than a typical Marvel movie, but I think that's a good thing. So now let's get to the negatives. And first off, I have to say that one of the real negatives for me is that there was too much with too little time. Now, I am someone who fully agrees that Marvel movies tend to be a little too long as is. But with that being said, I truly think that the amount of things that this movie had to introduce was really cut short by the time period allotted, or the amount of time the film ran for. The quantum realm, we met some very interesting characters, and in fact, I thought all of the side characters in this film were interesting. Incredibly so. But it took away time from, I think, focusing on Ant-Man and his life. And we really saw that at the start of the film with how fast we sort of fast forwarded to them entering the quantum realm. One thing that really hit me about the film is that we don't know what happened to Ant-Man's security company from Ant-Man 2. What happened to Luis and all of his friends? Also, what happened to Ghost? What happened to Ghost and Bill Foster? Did the Ant-Man team go back and make good on their word to help Ghost quit from phasing out of reality? It's questions like that which I truly think, had the film had more time and had maybe some of these characters been introduced in an earlier film, it could have had more time to explore, because while the feel of the movie was different, and again, I think it's good that it was different, it really suffered because a lot of core questions and concepts from the Ant-Man films, it seemed like had to be left out, probably not by choice, but because there was too little just too little time. And I think, again, I personally would have really cared about, did Luis, was he able to get their security business off the ground? Were they able to help the Ghosts? And maybe these are questions that will be answered later down the line, but it took away from some of the things that Ant-Man built in favor of introducing larger concepts. And when you try to introduce three large concepts, which again are the continuation of Ant-Man's story, the quantum realm, and Kang the Conqueror, you're going to have a very difficult time. So some people might say that's a positive. I personally think it's a negative because, again, I wish that we would have gotten more in-depth look at really what happened to Ant-Man and his core team, and not necessarily focusing on a concept that will further the MCU as a whole. Which, again, we can differ on that, but that is my personal opinion. Next up, honestly, the next two negatives are going to be about specific characters, and the first one is Corey Stoll's M.O.D.O.K character. So I think that their take on M.O.D.O.K was very interesting, because I think it would be very hard to explain a character like M.O.D.O.K in the everyday MCU world. You're not going to easily introduce a guy like M.O.D.O.K in the modern MCU, and how they said M.O.D.O.K was formed from when Ant-Man destroyed the Yellow Jacket suit, it was an interesting in-world explainer, but M.O.D.O.K is a very big character in the comics, and they killed him off sort of as if he was nothing, and I wish they would have allowed for him to shine more. And it kind of sucks that he's gone now, because again, M.O.D.O.K is a massive character in the comics, and he just was so underwhelming. I thought the CGI did not look the best. Now, I will admit that M.O.D.O.K would not be the easiest character to make a IRL version of, but still, it felt very awkward. He was funny, which I know some people are going to complain that in the comics, M.O.D.O.K is a much more serious character and not as funny. But again, there was just some discrepancies, such as M.O.D.O.K, knowing that Scott was in the Avengers. And sure, you could say that Scott said that while he was in prison, but it's implied that M.O.D.O.K knew that Wasp was also a member of the Avengers. And there's just a lot of timeline stuff It didn't make sense. And again, I think that M.O.D.O.K could be a much more important character than they made him out to be in this film. And I think that's a wasted opportunity. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll come back again. Everything's possible in the multiverse saga. But I think if this is the only time we see M.O.D.O.K, a truly great villain has had wasted potential. Finally, Bill, and I'll make this quick, but Bill Murray's Krylar character was just very awkward, very clunky, and in all honesty, didn't really serve a purpose. It sort of felt like they got Bill Murray just off of the side of the road and said, hey, want to come film a 10-minute scene for us? And that's exactly what they did, and his character didn't bring anything new to the table. We find out that he was a lover of Janet's, but that doesn't add anything new to the story. And there was all this hype around Bill Murray saying, oh, he plays a very bad guy in this movie. Well, I don't necessarily know where the very bad guy comes in, but the entire scene that he really featured in could have been scrapped, and the movie would have been a lot better for it. You could have dedicated that amount of time that you spent introducing Krylar to introducing more concepts about Kang, more concepts about the quantum realm, or again, giving us more information about what Scott has been up to and the rest of the Ant-Man team. Wasted opportunity, and again, just a disappointing character for an actor who I really don't think had any real reason to be in the film. So I've sort of already spoiled these two, what I'm going to say for my best scene and my worst scene. My favorite scenes, in my opinion, were the scenes that served as flashbacks to Janet and Kang. For the simple reason that it did so much character building for both of the characters. And I mean, Janet didn't need character building as much. She could have used it, and the character building we got from her was great. But more importantly, again, we really needed to establish Kang and his thought process and what he's like as a character. And I think they did a fantastic job sort of explaining, why Kang is the way he is, why he acts the way he is. And I'd say the worst scene was the entire Krylar bar scene. It just dragged on. It wasn't really funny at all. The only thing funny was Hank asking for something that could make him drunk, and that's not really that funny. And again, it was just like, oh, look, Bill Murray's in the movie. Well, that's great, but he doesn't bring anything. So we could have scrapped that scene, and it wouldn't have changed or added anything to the film. So that's why it's my least favorite scene. So overall, I'm going to rank Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was a great film. If this film was in Phase 4, I would probably rank it as one of my higher films in Phase 4, possibly number 2 behind Spider-Man. And I think this sort of sets a good tone for the MCU moving forward, especially in Phase 5. Now, again, I know that there's been a lot of critics who have panned this film. Go see it for yourself. Don't listen to the critics. And if you enjoy this movie, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Again, I'm going to hopefully start posting these Season 3 episodes of my thoughts on Mondays moving forward. Make sure to keep checking out MCU Comic Origins. I'm really enjoying making those videos, and we have a lot more coming down the pipeline. So again, make sure to stay tuned. I will keep you all updated, as it seems like the Marvel Phase 5 slate keeps changing daily. So we might have some changes to the release schedules for the next installment in the Power Level series. I will let you all know, of course, because I like that series as much as I know all of you do. But with that being said, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment on the video, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care.